Hi, I'm Nancy, and it's my understanding that people want pies this time of year. But a lot of times you're intimidated by making a pie yourself. And I think it's criminal to have you go and buy a pie at a store, or worse yet, a frozen pie. So I want to show you a way to make a pie yourself that's easy and predictable. First of all, we're going to start with the crust. Right now I'm going to make a double crust pie. And a double crust pie you can either use for a pie that has a top and a bottom crust, or if you have two pies that only have the bottom crust, which is what I'm doing today. So we're going to start with 2 heaping cups of flour in your food processor. And I know that a lot of times you're thinking, wait a minute, I thought you had to use the pastry blender, and that's the artistic part. And I've made this, like I said, very predictable with the food processor. We're going to add to that lard. Now I know you might be upset about lard, but how often do you really have pie? And it really makes a much more consistent and flaky crust. So I get a pound of lard, and 1/3 of that pound is just the right amount for a 2-crust pie. You just need to make 1 crust because you're only making 1 pumpkin pie. Just cut everything in half. So we put the lard in, and we need a little bit of salt for flavor. So we're going to put a teaspoon of salt in. And then first we're going to blend this up so it's crumbly. As you can see, it's nice and crumbly in there. Now we're going to add the water so that it'll stick together and become magically pie crust. So as the food processor is going, we're going to just dribble in some cold water until it forms a ball. Just until it forms a ball. We don't want it too wet or it's too hard to roll out. We don't want it too dry or it crumbles on you. Sometimes you have to stop and start it a little bit when it looks like it's starting to come together, but it's not quite doing it. Just kind of rearrange it a little bit so it can pick up that water you put in. There we go. There's the ball. So this is what we're looking for. Have it all turn into a ball at the end. Now it's time to roll it out. I put a dish towel underneath of my big cutting board, and then I use wax paper so I don't have to add any extra flour to make it too dry. Remember, we're making 2 crusts, so we're going to take this and divide it in half. Smash that down a little bit, put another piece of wax paper on top, and take your rolling pin and just start going north, south, east, west for a while, and you're going to get a kind of a square-ish thing, and then we're going to do the diagonals. Basically, you're just coming out from the center, pushing to the outside to try and make it nice and circular. Doesn't have to be perfect. Don't worry. We'll take care of it. The thing to remember is just that. It doesn't have to be perfect. But this easy way of making pie crust will make your pie crust predictable and flaky so that you don't have to worry about, will it make a good pie crust this time or not. After you feel like you've rolled enough on one side, just flip it over, lift it up to take the wrinkles out. And I don't think it's quite big enough for me yet. So I'm going to put that back and roll some more from this side. And sometimes that just helps it stretch a little bit more just by moving it to the other side. So for a pumpkin pie, I use a little bit deeper dish. And this, it looks like it's going to pretty much fit. I like to see a little bit on the outside so we know that it's big enough. We're going to take the wax paper off one side, use the other one to lift it onto the pie crust or the pie pan. Just lay it in there and slowly peel away your crust. Don't worry if it tears a little bit. It's easy to fix. There you go. A little bit small. Again, don't worry about it. We're going to fix it. So we make sure that it gets down in there all the way. Got a little bit left over here, which I'm going to use to kind of supplement my edges a little bit. So wherever I need a little bit more, I can just take from the outside, and this is how I make my edges, is just by pinching. And then if I have any excess left over, then I can take it in there. Now granted, this didn't end up looking like the prettiest pie crust, but trust me, nobody is going to worry about that. Once you have that pumpkin pie that you made yourself, they're going to love it.